Hello. It is yet another day in this space. Shook episode 2. And I guess we'll start off me getting the jitters out, shaking the jitters out, is just talking about what it is that I did today. Because I did a thing today. And I thought that thing was interesting. But I don't know if anyone else kind of understands this, but so I was in the gym, right? And it's where I frequent a lot. And so I see, seasoned veterans, old heads, new people, everything in between, all walks of life. It's truly a wonderful experience just in public gyms, just in general. But today in particular, I told myself I would go very light and not do anything heavy, just do chest and a little bit of something to get me moving, get the blood flowing and stuff like that. Nothing too crazy. And I was I was doing abs, and there was these groups of girls that were exercising on the same kind of like monkey bar style TRX ropes in the gym. And in between one of my sets, one of the girls, she was getting into one of the positions in order to start the exercise, and she had just finished. And po lady, she was struggling to get out of the TRX cuff, because she had one of the long flat bottom shoes, Vans I think they were. And it's hard to get it out, and she's having a tough time. So I just step over and I help her get out. I was like, your friends ain't nothing. Your friends is here, let you go through. She's like, yeah, like I was thanking you, and I was like, nah, it is okay. But yeah, that was interesting. I proceeded on with my exercises, but anyways, that was the interesting thing that ended up happening. But all right, I guess we'll hop right into it. As the title suggests, what we'll be talking about is on the last episode, we were looking at the Paleolithic diet, what that consisted of, kind of how it became popular. There was a book that came out that was, very popular and pushing the idea of this the paleo diet. It was a bestseller author, so there's just a lot of different things that were talked about in episode 1, but we're kind of piggybacking off of that and going and leaning into it. We're going to be talking about one of the Hadza tribes. That was one of the tribes mentioned that were studied as to what kind of like hunter-gatherer lifestyle looks like, even like today. Like these are all like recent peoples in Tanzania, and basically we're gonna look at that. I'm gonna look at some of these videos, analyze kind of how things go, and we'll go from there. And hopefully, if I don't go off on too many random tangents or rabbit holes, we can get to talking about more food activism. That's really what I want to really kind of focus on a little bit more, and then get back to talking about the diets and stuff a little bit later. But we'll just kind of roll with the punches and see where it takes us. But I think these tribes will be interesting to look at just from a cultural standpoint. And I hope that some of these videos kind of show and give a little bit of in detail look. I looked at a video that said asking hunter-gatherers life's tough questions. Like what kind of questions, like what kind of tough questions could you possibly be asking? So I think that these will be cool. And I think that a lot can be learned and gleaned from it. And I think at the very most, it'll show that like being a hunter-gatherer lifestyle, like there's more than just your food appears. You have your food right there, and now you're a hunter-gatherer. I think we have this understanding that we can eat this way, but then not move that way too. And it's like you can't have one without the other. The diet lifestyle pairs together. That's why it's lifestyle. it's not just what you're eating, it's how you're procuring what you're eating, how you're getting it, and everything that leads up in between. And so that's why it can continue to potentially work for a group or a culture like this. But we'll go ahead and get started. And let's see. All right. So there's my chat. Okay. Abe tribe, 40,000-year-old hunter-gatherer tribe gains land rights in Tanzania. Interesting. Gains land rights. I wonder did this anyway. Okay, so there's subtitles on the screen that I'll read out. So let me make sure that I do that. My rights over my land are more important than anything. Because everything I need can be found on my land. The Hadza are one of the last remaining hunter-gatherer tribes on Earth. They have roamed their ancestral territory in northern Tanzania for over 40,000 years. Yet over the last 50 years, the Hadzabe have lost 90% of their land to farmers and herders. Holy 90%? As local forest is cleared to make way for crops, livestock, and water holes. Now, for those that aren't seeing and watching the video is depicting a very just vast, desolate, destructed, torn down, very sparsely greenery. Even the animals in the picture looked very emaciated and everything like that. So it's like the lands look very, very raped and pillaged. They look very uninviting, to be honest. Protecting the forest is the thing that makes me happiest in life, says Hadzabe Community Ranger Petro Bayago.
Katika maisha yangu yote ni utunzaji wa misitu. Siku yangu ya kawaida mimi inapokucha asubuhi ninakwenda kuwinda.
Said, when I wake up in the morning, I go out and hunt on my land. If I cannot find meat in the area, I know that I will be able to find honey. Is what he goes on to say here. If I cannot find honey, then I can find fruit. And at the end of the day, I can always bring back baobab for my family. I'm not sure what baobab is, but we'll look into that later. In 2011, the Hadzabe asserted their legal claim over their ancestral territory. It became the first community in Tanzania to earn customary rights over their land. Earning legal rights to communal land is the first step towards keeping that land undeveloped and earning income through carbon credits that pay the Hadzabe for protecting their forests. Wow. Earning legal rights to communal land is the first step towards keeping that land undeveloped and earning income through carbon credits that pay the Hadzabe for protecting their forests.
Mabadiliko kwa hewa ya ukaa.
He goes on to say, before the carbon credit system was in place,
ni mkubwa sana kwangu Mwazabe.
I did not have much information on about how to protect the forest. But now I have more information. And I go on patrol to make sure people aren't cutting trees. I know now how to protect the forest. The Hadzabe have earned over $450,000 US by selling carbon credits, funding the salaries of 40 community wildlife scouts who enforce forest boundaries and wildlife laws. Deforestation in the Hadzabe territory has declined in the past 5 years compared to a significant increase in the wider region. Goes on to say, I hope that after my generation is gone, my children will remain and continue protecting the forest. I hope that they will continue protecting dik-diks, small antelopes, and other animals, and that they will preserve the culture of the Hadzabe and our connection to the forest. In 2019, the Hadzabe were awarded the Equator Prize by the United Nations Development Program for their work in forest conservation. The Equator Prize is awarded to indigenous peoples and local communities that advance nature-based solutions to climate change and sustainable development. I want to look into the Equator Prize.
From Tanzania, the Yaida Valley Project.
Wow. I won a prize. Now, if I do have to say so myself, Brother Man's is dripped out. Both are like all the way to the jewelry, the head garb, the matching of the spontaneity of the colors. They're very vibrant and bright, but then it's on this brown background. It's like has this little checker. Like it's like every piece of this clothing and this style has character, and you know, then there's I'm not gonna, you know, I'm not. And then you know you have what she's got on, which is you know, it's not gonna stand out as much as this, obviously, but he's definitely rocking the look. Okay. So that didn't really go into the food aspect of it as much as I thought it was going to. But it does hit on other areas that are important, like climate change and stuff like that, which is all tied into the oneness of the system itself. So well, that was Hadzabe tribe, 40,000-year-old hunter-gatherer tribe, gains land rights in Tanzania. This is a video put together by the United Nations, and that's very interesting. Very, very interesting. At some point I want to look into the the background of this land thing. I don't want to do it now because I don't want to get sidetracked off of this, but that definitely seems like a cool thing to kind of look into as well. But okay, so we have asking hunter-gatherers life's tough questions. I wonder. I hope this gives and gleans a little bit more information about the food and the diet and everything like that. If it doesn't seem like it's going that way, I'll be looking at other things, but hopefully this kind of goes into it.
The Hadza are a small tribe of hunter-gatherers living by Lake Eyasi in Tanzania. They are some of the last true hunter-gatherers left on planet Earth and are under threat of disappearing. There are only about 1,500 left. About 2 months ago, I was fortunate to be able to spend 48 hours hunting with them.
This is exciting. Go, 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 go.
It was all the excitement you'd expect. Later, I returned to join them, this time in a longer 72-hour hunting trek, deeper in the African bush. During this time, and right before raiding another baboon camp, I asked Sokolo, the leader of this tribe of hunter-gatherers, what's the most important thing in life?
Manako.
And there it is. Brother man, he asked him the first question this man asked this other brother of brown and or black, how you want to see it. His answer without hesitation, first only word, meat. So I paused for a reason, and the reason is very it's very water cooler inside baseball insider joke type of thing, but I shall move on from this. But I can't say that I'm laughing internally because I know whoever may see this and understand this is going to laugh, because it is foreshadowing and pre-watching life that has brought me to this point. But I want to continue with the video, and so that's what we're gonna do now.
Manako bala. Manakata.
So Mans goes on to say, meat in this order. He says meat,
Manako bala.
followed by honey,
Manakata.
followed by corn porridge.
Ko haga kwa kakachana.
He says going hunting for baboon,
Na.
antelope,
Tinggal komati.
zebra or zebra.
Na.
Is
Is it the baboons?
Yeah, he saw baboons. Baboons over there.
Oh, he's eyeing baboons right now. He found some baboons across the air.
But you can see the hill over there. They go to sleep over there. That's good.
I ask, what happens after you die?
He asked him after he died, what happens after he dies? And he says death, and now he seems to be pondering this question.
The young
He goes on to say, when a person dies, we put them in a cave and we move on. We put them deep in a cave and we move.
The youngest hunter, Babua, joins us. He wants to help clarify some of Sokolo's answers, starting with the importance of hydration.
Okay. So it seems like now they've reformatted the way that they are kind of, setting this up. And it seems like now it may run a little bit smoother. You must drink, so hydration is very important. Water, you need to drink water. You eat, but if you don't drink, you'll get a dry throat and you will die.
I ask, what was your happiest day?
We were happy when we get honey and meat. To be happy, we need meat. No meat. If we have meat, honey, and water, then we are happy.
Now
Thank you,
with
friend.
Papua here, I ask again, what happens when you die?
We put them in the caves. We bury them in a small hole. The body goes to the sun. We kill a big animal and celebrate. And we shoot the big animal. And we eat the big animal and take the skin and wrap the body. We believe that. I ain't talking real fast. We take the skin and wrap the body. We believe that it goes to the sun. But whatever, we don't really know when someone dies. When we kill the animal and celebrate, we wish them good luck in their person and had problems in their life. We pray their problems go away. We pray their problems go away. But we don't know if they go to heaven or not.
Do they believe that they see their ancestors when they die after?
I ask Sokolo, what's your greatest fear?
Okay. First part of this video gets at what it was that I was looking for. I don't think looking at the rest of this, given the answers the questions just kind of get a little bit out there and away from the point that I was wanting to get at here. But it definitely shows immediately in the hunter-gatherer hierarchy of things that meat, and it seems like there's really no discriminating, meat of all kinds, both baboon, surprised that, I wonder if those dogs are meant for hunting and are more companion. I would imagine more often than not. But yeah, man said they had to make a cut in the video to be like, okay, let's look at this a different way. And then the other individual comes up and says, no. Hydration, first and foremost, gotta have that. And I was like, okay. At least that is over. That is understandable to be over meat. But he co-signed and was like, look, second place, meat. Then honey, if not there. Then a form of starch, so corn, a grain, starchy grain. Then fruits and all of those things at the bottom half of that ladder. So that definitely falls in line with that. But that's interesting. And again, this doesn't really go into what it is that I was trying to get at with this, but again, it just goes in the hierarchy, and because it's so cherished, it has to be asserted that it's because it's more rare, like it's more scarce, it's more difficult to come by, it's harder to achieve that than it is to stalk your berries, or your apple tree. It's a lot easier to just do that in those circumstances. But I want to let's see. All right, just give me a second. I'm looking at something. All right. I think this will be interesting video to watch. It's amazing how Hadza tribe survived by hunting. And let's see. Hunter-gatherer lifestyle. You know, really about that life. If you just say you're about that life. They just are they really just about to show how they just pull up with a bow and arrow? Yeah, I mean they got their weapons. They are just let's see. Fast forward a little bit from just watching them stalking their prey. Seems like they're currently drinking from a tree?
After drinking some water and rest for a little bit, the hunt continues.
Oh, that's a voice. Oh, okay. So they stopped, water break, because it don't look like it's cold out there. It look like it's hot. But it's like already off rip. 4 minutes and 58 seconds in. And obviously I skipped past a couple of the scenes because it just looked like it was just stalking of the prey, stopping, watching, stalking of the prey. But it just goes to show how long of a process this is. If you ever have complained about, and I know those that, this ain't no hashtag ad, they ain't paying me to say this, but if you've ever been to Chipotle and you're in line trying to get some food, just think. And again, like they cut out probably several hours possibly from again just scouting, finding the prey, and then them being able to then record them doing the thing as they're doing it or what have you. All of that. So we're not really even looking at and seeing the full length of all the way from finding the prey to catching the prey and everything after that. But going back to my now example, any of that amount of time, if you have ever complained about having to wait for him to drop fresh veggies, beans, rice, chicken, beef, whatever it is, if you have just been upset that they had to go in the back, make a fresh pack, go and hunt and gather it from the fridge because somebody else hunted and gathered it previously, and by hunted and gathered, I mean factory farmed, so you kind of cut out the whole having to hunt and all that other stuff. But now you got to do this. And so obviously, like if somebody is saying that they're following a Paleolithic diet, it is just that. It's just the diet part of it. It does not, it probably does not mirror, like there's no way, and obviously I'm being facetious, but there's no way it's like you're eating like they're eating, and when you go to the gym, like, you're trying to simulate stalking your prey, or you're trying to simulate running and stopping and all this other stuff. And it's like, yeah, you can train, I guess, in like the general sense, like most people do now, which is just either full body exercises, functional movements that, are important for just lifestyle. And then you have your focus on, your fave muscles and the ones that you favor more and that you use less and all those other things that you can do to program your exercise. But there is absolutely no way that, again, like you're pairing that with the paleo diet, because as we've already looked at, the paleo diet is already extremely hard to follow to begin with, because to refresh, you can't eat grains, you can't have dairy, like there's usually no dairy that's involved in that, no beans, no legumes, no, again, highly processed anything, because all those other things aforementioned, the starches and the grains and legumes and all those fruits and berries, all those things take time to grow. Now, also animals take time to grow too, but that's why they just wait for the animal to pull up. And then depending on how big, like a cow, like a calf, like those are already large animals. So even the baby form of a cow, being a calf, is still extremely large and a lot of meat. And we see here that they're not even getting, like, again, like there's not just these big animals roaming around. And every now and again they may come against a zebra or a I think they said bison potentially, and I could be completely butchering the types of animals that are around there. But most of it is small game, baboons, squirrels, rabbits, stuff like that. And those animals, more often than not, are also scavenging and just eating berries and seeds and stuff like that. So yeah.
They shoot a dik-dik, the smallest antelope, and it ran in.
Interesting. Learned that they call the animal, the small antelope, a dik-dik.
Into the bushes. So they have to track and find it. Antelope meat is very sweet, and the Hadza love meat.
Again, drip go crazy. Got the fur, and then they got the different, like that, like ain't nothing fresher than these fits. And I'm interested in seeing how they construct some of these, because some of these definitely look like, these shorts look like regular shorts. Now, I don't know if that has anything to do with intervention of people coming because of tourism and content and all these other things, and documenting their experiences and stuff like that, and interference with that quote outside world as they may see it, or as they definitely could possibly see it. And if that was what brought this type of garb into their culture now, or if they created them, because they look well tailored, like they look like you can buy it off a rack at Banana Republic. Okay, they seem to be stalking their prey, still stalking their prey, still stalking their prey, stalking their prey. This is the most replayed part. Doggy. And it's like well, what sounds like mumbling to me is probably full-fledged sentences and words and jargon. But it seems like also the whole time while they're doing this, they're constantly speaking to one another, or at least murmuring and making sounds and stuff like that, which is very interesting. Okay, it looks like they're coming up on when they have found the... Oh, yeah, they hear the animal wounded. He's like,
and
they found it.
final, they got it.
All right. And cool. We ain't got to watch the part where they, do the thing. It's already... They caught their bounty. They stalked their prey. And yeah, GG's for the antelope. We pour one out for the homies. But the other homies had to eat. So it's like, the whole circle of life thing. So I understand. I don't hold it against them. The food chain do be food chaining. Food chain be food chaining. There's not really too much you can do about that. But, okay, so with this as the background of everything, kind of got to... Trying to get it. Guess I could do it here. Oh, I thought I had access. Okay, well, bad. Okay, so we got another article here. looking at this tribe, which again, I feel like with so much research and intervention being done, it's very hard for others, the outside world, to not start to bleed into the other areas. And honestly, I look at it like it's a good thing. Like, I don't think that it's a bad thing that other parts of the world come to this part of the world and maybe providing something that everyone would need, while also allowing these peoples to have autonomy as to what it is they want to do, how they want to do it, and how they want to go about living. So, I don't have an issue with because of scarcity, instead of just letting them potentially die off because that's just how it's gone. Say if they can't hunt or gather in time, it's like, well, no, like providing them with alternative nutrition during times of need, during what would to them be a literal famine. Not famine in the sense of like crop not growing, but famine in the sense of you can't get food to eat. And after a while of not getting food to eat, it's not like you get more energy to then be able to go and get more food to eat. So it's like, yeah, canned food, and I'm using a hyperbole in comparison to what they may have, but canned food is always going to be necessary as a backup plan to when other perishable foods or just food is just inaccessible, that it makes it just a little bit and you can keep it for a little bit longer, conserving and stuff like that. But that's all food preparation that we talked about later down the road. Now we want to focus on food, where the food is coming from, why there's this idea that this is how we're supposed to eat. And then we still see the real life example of that. And obviously, like, looking at those tribe individuals, like, they didn't look like they were, by the eye test, they didn't look like they were malnourished or deficient in anything, but that's just an eye test. That's just that. I could be completely wrong. Like, they could be iodine deficient but not be showing goiter just yet. They could have different ailments and stuff like that, and we would just not know from the eye test. These individuals aren't getting blood tests to my knowledge, or like we're not looking at, like, maybe we're looking at their life expectancy, but because of their lifestyle, you can't separate their lifestyle and their diet from each other, because the life expectancy could be, or is going to be, affected by either or and both at the same time. But let's look at this article. Honey Hadza Hunter-Gatherers Human Evolution. It is a study published in the Journal of Human Evolution. And it goes on. I'm not going to read the entire thing. I just want to hit the high notes of everything. So we'll start by looking at the abstract. The abstract will give a good look at it'll give a good look at what this study is really kind of looking at, and then we'll do a deeper dive, comb through, look and see how it looks in the middle, and see if it's a succinct study. But abstract. Honey is the most energy-dense food in nature. It is therefore not surprising that where it exists, honey is an important food for almost all hunter-gatherers. Here we describe and analyze widespread honey collecting among foragers and show where it is absent in Arctic and subarctic habitats. Honeybees are also rare to absent. Second, we focus on one hunter-gatherer society. The Hadza of Tanzania, Hadza men and women both rank honey as their favorite food. Hadza acquires 7 types of honey. I did not know there were 7 types of honey. Hadza women usually acquire honey that is close to the ground, while men often climb tall baobab. I need to learn how to say that. So we're just gonna do this right quick.
Baobab.
Baobab. Okay, Baobab, which means plant. Called climb tall. While men often climb tall baobab trees to raid the largest beehives with stinging bees. Honey accounts for a substantial portion of the kilocalories in the Hadza diet, especially that of Hadza men. Cross-cultural forager data revealed that in most hunter-gatherers, men acquire more honey than women, but often, as with the Hadza, women do acquire some. I don't know what that has to do with. Anyway, virtually all warm climate foragers consume honey. Our closest living relatives, the great apes, take honey when they can. We suggest that honey has become part of the diet of our ancestors dating back to at least the earliest hominins. Earliest hominins, however, would have surely been less capable of acquiring as much honey as more recent, fully modern human hunter-gatherers. We discuss reasons for thinking our early ancestors would have acquired less honey than foragers, ethnographically described, yet still significantly more than our great ape relatives. Okay, so this doesn't really... This just talks about how they just will go absolute, no pun intended, bananas for honey. And honey's fire. You know, honey, can't go wrong with it. A spoon of honey is, it's just nice. Glaze of honey on most things. You got me there. It's sweet. It has a thickness to it, a viscosity, a viscousness, if you will, to it that is that's pleasing, and it comes with a lot of nutrition, a lot of a nutritional powerful punch, because again, it's like cross pollination of different types of pollen and different allergens and everything like that you get accustomed to. That's why, if you're able to, honey is usually, very expensive. Beekeeping as a industry itself is very expensive and taxing on the environment and, all of that. But without going into that, which, it'll have its course in time to be talked about respectfully. Honey that you get from like stores, when you can, and again, honey is a luxury to, as far as like budget wise and the acquisition of honey and all of that. But getting honey that's local to where you are as opposed to imported honey is very important, because it's, the idea is that you get honey from honeybees that pollinate from your area. It will help defend you from things in your area as opposed to helping to defend from other areas, or you're bringing things and allergens that aren't native to you or your area by eating honey that came from somewhere else. But I digress with the whole honey. I thought this journal would go more, but it just really just talks again about how important honey is in the big scheme of things. Oh, goody. NPR piece. Let's see what our good old NPR has to say about the Hadza diet. This is an article titled, "Is the secret to a healthier microbiome hidden in the Hadza diet?" My quick guess would be no, but I could be wrong. Let's take a look, or a listen, or a look and listen.
The phrase endangered species often refers to charismatic animals like mountain gorillas or polar bears. Well, today scientists are reporting that a whole different type of extinction is happening inside our bodies. NPR's Michaeline Duclef explains.
So if you want to see where this extinction is happening, just look down at your belly. Inside there is a whole ecosystem. Yes, I'm talking about your microbiome, which contains more than 1,000 species of bacteria. Justin Sonnenberg at Stanford says they are powerful critters.
These microbes influence biology all over our bodies. So they're affecting our immune system, our metabolism,
even our brains.
So moods and behavior can be affected by our gut microbes. So it's really an important community for our health.
A community, Sonnenberg says, that's in danger. Today in the journal Science, he and his colleagues report that some bacteria inside our guts are disappearing.
Over time, we are...
Yeah, disappearing because we're not eating the same things, which means we're not pooping out the same things, which means that the things that eat our poop aren't eating the same things. And so the cycle continues. And eventually, after that cycle continues over and over and over again, you're just going to get rid of certain things, which I wouldn't say, depending on what it is that's being extracted, if we can narrow in on what that is, I don't think that inherently that's a bad thing. I think there's probably certain things that definitely were eradicated from our microbiome as a result of proper sanitation and better sanitation standards over time. But outside of that, yeah, I can see how if you subsist on a diet of Sour Patch Kids, chicken nuggets, ketchup, and Dr. Pepper, that your gut microbiome is going to be very interesting. And it's definitely going to be different from someone that is eating more plants or even more meat for that matter, because you're dealing with different compounds in that situation. You're dealing with different organisms, and if everything that you have is built in a lab, you can't create that natural-esque you can't replicate that artificially, like fully. Like there's going to be things that you're going to leave out, and it's just going to happen that way, and there's nothing you can really do about it.
Losing valuable members of our gut community.
Sonnenberg and his colleagues analyzed the microbiomes of 18 different cultures around the world, including traditional cultures like hunter-gatherers in Tanzania, who don't eat any processed food or refined sugars. The findings were crystal clear. The further away people's diets are from a Western diet, the more variety of microbes they have in their guts, including bacteria that are missing from Americans.
We've come to realize how important this gut community is for our health, and yet we're eating a diet that totally neglects them, so we're essentially starving our microbial selves.
In other words, a Western lifestyle has wiped a few species from our digestive tracts. Jens Walter, a microbiologist at the University of Alberta, says, now the big question is, how is this affecting our health? He talked to us on Skype and says one hypothesis is that losing those bacteria has contributed to the rise in autoimmune diseases, including diabetes.
All these diseases, they have skyrocketed.
That's an interesting angle that I haven't heard before or wasn't brought up to me during my undergrad and master's program in nutrition, was the idea that because your microbiome is changing, that is a potential catalyst or creates a better environment, if you will, for different autoimmune diseases, metabolic states such as diabetes. I would have never begun to think to making those particular connections. But I would believe that it makes sense. If you're not eating things that can help combat certain other things caused by the other things you're eating, that it can create the perfect scenario for the worst health state, potentially, because you're not having that extra thing to help your immune system, or your immune system is essentially non-existent because of the foods that you choose to eat that don't basically refortify the troops.
Skyrocketed within the last 50 or 60 years.
And they've already been linked to the microbiome in animal models.
Although we lack a definite proof, at least the picture or the puzzle is getting more and more complete, and everything points to that hypothesis.
And keeping people healthy likely means keeping the critters inside of us healthy and happy. Michaeline.
Interesting take. Definitely. Now I wonder what the article, because this doesn't, the article and the audio are two different things. But let's take a look at what the article has to say. Again, the article is the secret to a healthier microbiome hidden in the Hadza diet. The words endangered species often conjure up images of big exotic creatures. Think elephants, leopards, or leopards, as I like to say, and polar bears. There's another type of extinction that may be occurring right now inside our bodies. Yes, I'm talking about the microbiome, that collection of bacteria in our intestines that influences everything from metabolic and immune system to moods and behavior. Okay, so this is really just going back over that. The trend is clear. The further away people's diets are from a Western diet, the greater the variety of microbes they tend to have in their guts. And that includes bacteria that are missing from American guts. So whether it's people in Africa, Papua New Guinea, or South America, communities that live in a traditional lifestyle have common gut microbes, ones that we all lack in the industrialized world. In a way, the Western diet, low in fiber and high in refined sugars, is basically wiping out species of bacteria from our intestines. During the dry season, Hadza eat a lot of more meat, kind of like Westerns do, and their microbiome shifted as their diet changed. Some of the bacterial species that have been prevalent disappeared to undetectable levels, similar to what's been observed in Westerners' guts. But then in the wet season, when Hadza eat more berries and honey, these missing microbes returned, although the researchers are not really sure what's in these foods that bring the microbes back. Yeah, so it seems like what the difference is that for the Hadza, there's an off season. Dry season, wet season. Dry season, they eat a lot more meat. Wet season, they eat more berries and honey. There's that balance there. Whereas in certain American cultures and American diets, there's no letting off. There ain't no off season. Ain't no. Shouts out to J. Cole. No off season. We often. What y'all talking about? So there's no bulking. They got bulking and cutting season, whereas here is bulking and bulking and bulking and bulking and bulking and bulking and bulking with a side of bulking while you bulking. But are you bulking though? Tell me when you start bulking. Anyway. But yeah, so of course they're going to have those microbes be able to come back, because it's like, when you have that food that you, I guess, forget about because you go back to eating your regular meals and then you eat it, it either makes you gassy or it doesn't, or makes you feel some type of way. But that's gonna happen as a consequence of not having it at all, so your body's not exposed to it. And if it was bringing in something that your body didn't naturally produce, that's gonna be lost. And you can't make up for it anywhere else. It just is what it is. I think this finding is really exciting, says Lawrence David, who studies the microbiome at Duke University. It suggests the shifts in the microbiome seen in industrialized nations might not be permanent, that they might be reversible by changes in people's diets. And yeah, and this is, again, an idea of thinking about the microbiome as being permanent. I don't think I've ever really looked at the microbiome as being permanent. I would imagine there has to be some permanence to certain types of bacteria, because there's just certain things that have to be there in order for a human being to continue to survive and exist and everything like that. And that everything that you eat can't kill you, because if it did, that's just a nothing burger. So it becomes a situation where it's like, obviously there has to be some microbiome as a foundation, as a base level. And gut microbiome, again, is one of those things that I want to talk about eventually, and that will be thoroughly looked at as much as we can look at it, and talk about that. But it makes sense that it seems to reason that there are going to be things that have to be there, that if they're not there, it's going to cause issues. You have to supply it via your diet, and then your body just has to kind of make up the difference if it's just not available there either. When it can't, issues. When it can, it's running fine. Sometimes when it doesn't have certain things, it could just make do. It can make the ends meet. It can make it do what it do, but it wouldn't prefer to do that. And you definitely are probably taxing other parts of the body in order to make that happen as a counterbalance. But it doesn't want to do that. But also, it can't make something out of nothing. If it's not exposed to it, then how can it synthesize it potentially? The finding supports the idea that the microbiome is plastic, depending on diet. Now, the big question is, what's the key dietary change that could bring the missing microbes back? Lawrence thinks it could be cutting down on fat. At a high level, it sounds like that, he says, because what changed in the Hadza's diet was whether or not they were hunting versus foraging for berries or honey, he says. But Sonnenberg is placing his bets on another dietary component. Fiber and desire. Okay. Fiber, which is a vital food for the microbiome. And again, fiber deserves its own platform. It deserves its own category. It'll be talked about as well in upcoming episodes. Fiber, there's no ifs, ands, or ways about it. Fiber is not one of those things that you can get from animal products. Fiber is the only thing that you can get from plant sources. Synthesized fiber, insoluble fiber versus soluble fiber, and everything in between, but they all are coming from a plant source. And what it seems like is that, again, with the berries and everything like that, when they're foraging, they're getting that. Whereas when you're just eating meat, the boo-boo gonna be a little bit tough to pass. Just a little bit tough to pass. We're beginning to realize that people who eat more dietary fiber are actually feeding their gut microbiome. Sonnenberg says Hadza consumed a huge amount of fiber because throughout the year they eat fiber-rich tubers and fruit from baobab trees. These staples give them about 100 to 150 grams of fiber each day. That's equivalent to the fiber in 50 bowls of Cheerios and 10 times more than many Americans eat. Let me run that back. Gives you about 100 to 150 grams of fiber each day, which is the equivalent of 50 bowls of Cheerios. It's a lot of Cheerios. That's a lot of Cheerios. So yeah, like they are on the regular, like regular, like the ship sails at the same time day when you got this much fiber that you're working with. Stuff is moving. It's going. It's in. It's out. Anyway, over the past few years, we've come to realize how important this gut community is for our health, and yet we're eating a low-fiber diet that totally neglects them, he says. So we're essentially starving our microbial cells. So yeah, there's that lock and key. It's like, no, crazy thing is, with a title like this, it's going to be great because then it asks you like, what is this? And I want this, and how come I can't have this? Why is it a secret? It's like, if you're telling me the secret is fiber. I hate to inform you, but I don't think that's y'all think that's a secret? Like for real. Like y'all didn't know about fiber? Like let me know, because if we're gonna talk about fiber regardless, and how important it is in facilitating a lot of different things. But I feel like as I talk about a lot of different things, everything sounds like it's the most important, but it is. And I hate to just say it that way, but when you start to see how everything interlocks, and when you don't have something that's now taking the place of another thing that you need, but then that thing needs its own thing, you now are dealing with a lot of red tape in between. Whereas if you look at it from this holistic view, you're getting everything that you want and need, and then there's usually a little bit of icing on said proverbial cake. But we'll just look at a couple of more. I don't want to be long-winded on this portion. We've been kind of talking about this for a little bit, about these wonderful, wonderful people. Strong. Trying to. Okay. Oh wait, no, it's already over. Okay, so we'll look at this other article, blog. We'll look at this other blog about what they have to say about it, and we'll look at that. Look at this other one, and then we'll move on to more food activist-esque type of conversations. So, the 6 secrets of the Hadza tribe. What we can learn about health and longevity. It's like these, and it's like, let me stop. Maybe from the place of privilege that I have of interacting and knowing what I feel like I know and think I know, and have reinforced that I sort of kind of maybe know, but I'm still very, very, very stupid. A lot of these don't seem like secrets. They're just hard to achieve currently, or harder for some to achieve currently, or you can achieve some of them while having to give up the others, because that's also how time works. And existing on this earth and interacting with it is a lot harder than it may seem to just go out and do a thing. So, I feel like there's a lot of things that the Hadza have to deal with that I don't have to deal with. And I know that for a fact. There's a lot of things they have to deal with that I don't have to deal with. And vice versa when it comes to access to food. But it's like one of those things where it's like, would you want to trade places? Do you believe that they're generally happy? If they're generally happy with that, that's cool. I'm not saying that you can't be happy with this. And I'm not saying that it's not a wholesome way to live, or a way to live that is good, or good relative to what. But, they are who they are and what they've been doing. But just look at these as secrets, I find is very kind of interesting. Anyway. For many, modern life comes with a host of creature comforts. Ready access to food and lots of it. Technology that keeps us connected. Vehicles that transport us anywhere we need to go. Shows and apps. Shows and apps to keep us entertained. And cutting-edge medical procedures and pharmaceuticals to keep us kicking. Yeah, if you have access to... Anyway. Of course, we can't even imagine functioning without many of these. But with all of these being gained with all that's been gained over the last several centuries, it's hard not to notice what has been lost. Regular movement, downtime and sleep, meaningful social connection, time in nature, and minimally processed foods are no longer seamlessly integrated into our lives as they once were, much to the detriment of our overall vitality. And I'd say I agree, and I don't think. Okay, it addresses this by saying it's hard not to notice what has been lost. Regular movement, downtime, and sleep. Yeah, those all get lost whenever you're, trying to do other things, or other things become more important than these things, and you have to prioritize. So, we all are doing that. We all have done that, and it's harder for some, easier for others in every particular area. And, it's not all cookie cutter. And yes, while we may live longer than we did 100 plus years ago, when the leading causes of death were things like tuberculosis and pneumonia, there had been a significant uptick in chronic diseases such as diabetes, heart disease, and cancer, which are to a considerable extent PREVN. I messed it up. Should I even try it again? I'm going to. PREVENTABLE. It don't really fit, but preventable. To a considerable extent, preventable. Diseases such as diabetes, heart disease, and cancer. Again, not all of them, but most. If caught early, and by if caught early, meaning it was caught before it was that, but you still have work to do in order to get it from being that. You were on kind of like that tipping scale, if you will. But all of which is to say, our lifespan may be increasing, but our health span is not. That's an interesting way of looking at it. Our lifespan may be increasing, but our health span, I hope it explains their differentiation here. Because I understand looking at it, like on face value, lifespan, like, I lived 98 years. But in those 98 years, my health was poo. But then you would go on to say, well, it couldn't have been that bad because you lasted longer than the person that, I guess, lived to be 55, but was a Tonka truck as far as like build and everything. So, I mean, I guess I can see it that way. Like we're living longer, but it's a longer drawn out, and we're not really living longer. We're just kind of like putting Band-Aids on a lot of busting pipes and trying to live in a pill, basically, like a medical pill of, let me take this pill and this pill will just fix everything. And our lifestyles are largely to blame. The difference between our modern lives and the way things were becomes strikingly apparent when you take a look at the daily life of the Hadza, or Hadzabe, an indigenous tribe of Tanzania, which we talked about previously. I also want to say it, and I just thought of this, to be honest. Well, not like just thought of this as in I thought of it. It was more like I had a direction that I wanted to go, and I feel like I've gotten far enough within that direction to where now I can recall this thought that I had at the forefront and say it now and fully flesh it out before I get into more of this article talking about the Hadza people. But there's a part of me that finds it very, very, I don't know the emotional word to tie to it. It's more just like a state of being for me that is a hard word to put in there. And I know a lot of the words that some people can put in there, but I just don't think at this time those words may fit. They may be either too harsh or not harsh enough, or somewhere in between. And the English language doesn't really do me a great job, and my lack of knowing a lot of the words in the English language doesn't help me to explain how it is that I'm feeling. So I'm just gonna say what it is. But the studying of these people in this community and this culture, it's one of those things that it's interesting that these. I wonder the dynamic. I truly do. And, it's one of those things that I hope that during the process of most of these studies and during the research and everything like that, we've talked about this. I've talked about this in several of my classes and everything like that, and just with people in general. But the need for ethical ways of studying things, and particularly things that are living things, and then also living things being humans, and how you go about doing that. And through this entire journey of finding out about this tribe and how this tribe goes about living their life in the only way that they can, it's hard to not point out that it's very otherizing. And it's otherizing because obviously the culture is completely different than the culture that I grew up in, come from, have been exposed to until now. And so it's going to immediately have like this, like, oh, they're over there doing that. I'm going to open my eyes and now look at what it is that they're doing. And so it's that double-edged sword of, not wanting to have people pointing cameras at people that are at like colored individuals. And I don't know if they've done this with like other cultures or other areas that are less, I guess, less developed or developed in the same way as them, but their tribe looks different than them. I don't know if there's been a juxtaposition of that or a comparison of those two or a cross-reference or anything of that sort. But it just seems interesting that the first thing that they go to, that they're able to go to, and it also makes sense regionally with it being the motherland and the homeland, but it's an interesting thought that the homeland, the motherland, and these individuals doing this for as long as they've been doing it and continue to do it, that the industrialized civilization was exported from them expeditiously, and none of that has been gone in the opposite direction. But we read an article and saw an article, or looked at rather a video of them regaining land, but it's like, why was it wait, there's so much information that's lost in between, and I want to look into that, and that's something that I'll make note of and maybe try to look into a little bit as to where that stemmed from, where that comes from, and I actually want to make a note of that. But yeah, I can't, and maybe I'm hypersensitive to this because it's just coming off of Black History Month and looking at things and being like, that happened. That just so happened to happen right after Black History Month. That whole joke or whatever, the ha ha he elbow to the rib. But like looking at this, I love it. I want to see it. I want to know because just the knowledge part of it, and I'm sure that majority of the way that researchers are feeling is that same way of like, I'm just trying to get information as cleanly and as naturally as I possibly can. And, from the videos that we looked at, it didn't seem like they were encroaching on their autonomy and their freedom. So, I agree with it from that standpoint. But I just, maybe it's just me, like looking at it. It's like, man, why does it always seem like it's got to be black people that the camera is pointed at and they're like, look at what they're doing. It's different than what I do. So let's study and look at that. When there's a lot of, I feel, and feel free to feel differently from this, but I wonder if they would have that same gall and audacity to study more African Americans. And I know that comes with population issues, that comes with, a lack of trust within the medical field to even be able to and want to engage in certain things of that nature, and everything that goes along with that. But there is a need for having more diverse research and information, and it's frustrating that it's hard to come by because of the fairness of, I don't care about the autonomy or the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness of the individual living entity that I am studying or looking at. And so now no one wants to be a part of any of those, because we don't know what it's going to turn out to be, and that's unfortunate, because a lot of the things I feel like could be tailored more to African Americans or Black people, or more things can be found out through African Americans being studied that could help the general population and vice versa. And looking at it more so like, again, a holistic view of everyone in the world and not just individuals within the world, and looking at them and saying, this is what they do. We know that there are certain things that could be dangerous. I would just more so say, you know, if through this was able to provide them with a way to be more sustainable over time, with providing them with potentially like vaccinations and, you know, healthcare and stuff like that, cool. I feel like that would be very appreciated. It depending on how you go about doing things, you can look at like customs and cultural norms when it comes to things like that. But again, it comes down to finding and having an intimate relationship with this community in order to integrate and provide help and aid, and help in the sense of what truly is helpful, not helpful in the way of, I want to help in the way that I want to help and you're just going to take my help regardless, but actually listening to and responding adequately to what it is that actually could help people in general. And as in, just say people in general. It doesn't matter if it's this community, me, anyone that I know, helping and being helped. You're going to meet that crossroad at some point in time. But I'll get off my soapbox on that. But I thought about that, and I guess this had to let that out. But we'll continue on. Spoiler, but no spoiler alert. These secrets may not come as a shock to you. I hope they come as a shock to you. If they do, and it changes your mind, then that's great. That's my goal. But if they don't, I understand. I feel like these things have been blasted for a long time in the food space, but I think also food education has taken a large nosedive, especially in recent time, of just like where did home ec go? Where does, you know, nutrition education from a primary public entity school space, or is it just everyone just kind of tries to figure it out, much like sex education, where it's like, you know, you just you teach one thing or teach to not do the thing or to not do it, and then you just leave everything else up to interpretation and expression, which is bad. But allow. Number 1, ditch the nutrient poor processed foods. I agree. Yeah. Bye. The Hadza diet is primarily, shout out to the plant-based diet, been doing it since day one, including things like berries, fiber-rich tubers, baobab fruit, and seeds. See, now I wonder if it's a particular fruit now. And I say I wonder as if I can't look at it. Okay, so it is it's its own thing. I wanna Oh no. I'm pulling up all the images on Google. You never know what you're gonna see on there when you do that. Oh no. Baobab is a tree native to certain regions in Africa, also known by the scientific name. The pulp, leaves, and seeds of the baobab fruit, which is available in powdered form, have been associated with many health benefits. I wonder if they describe how it, what's it taste? Okay, here we go. We like to describe the taste of baobab as a light lemon sherbet. This refreshing and tangy citrus flavor is also a tad sweet. Mixed with other ingredients, baobab can act as a flavor brightener, enhancing the flavors of the companion ingredients. Okay. Anyway. Fruit and seeds, leafy green foliage, and marula nuts, but also contains honey, including honeycomb and even small amounts of bee larvae. Also, they actually just eat the bees too. And meat from birds, porcupine, and wild game. The Hadza consume no processed foods or agriculturally farmed foods. Their diet is as natural as it gets. It's high in fiber and phytochemicals and low in processed sugars, all of which contribute to the fact that the Hadza experience almost no autoimmune diseases, obesity, diabetes, colon cancer, Crohn's disease, and other chronic ailments. Just linking out too. Interesting. Sorry, I'm glancing and reading over it in my head, and I haven't been saying anything. Okay, I'm gonna look at that as well. Dr. Rawls, medical director of Vital Plan, believes that one particularly beneficial aspect of the Hadza diet may be its relatively high levels of phytochemicals. Natural chemicals found in plants, which have potent antioxidant properties and offer protection against harmful microbes, free radicals, and toxic substances. Many modern westernized diets, on the other hand, are notoriously low in phytochemicals and often contain high levels of sugars, refined carbohydrates, and unhealthy fats. Example given, trans fats. These highly processed diets, in turn, have been associated with everything from diabetes to heart disease to premature death. Eliminating or greatly reducing your intake of grain-derived processed foods and sugar, and eating more nutrient-dense whole foods that our ancestors would recognize can go a long way. Whole foods that our ancestors would recognize. That's the slogan. Food. Eat what your ancestors will recognize. So I think about it. It's like you hand somebody you hand somebody that's like, I don't know, from like the 1400s. And they're like, hey bro, try these Starburst, bro. It was fire, bro. Like, you know how many things dude look at it and be like, there's no way I'm putting that in my mouth. No way. Or looking at it like how we may look at like steak, where it's like the pinnacle steak shouldn't need steak sauce at all. Like, it's kind of like the thing, like if you prepare and cook it just right, it doesn't need any of that if it's like a high cut enough steak. I feel like they take it to the highest level and they're like, you ain't even gotta cook it. Like, why are you ruining this perfectly good meat by cooking it? Now, again, you know, they do roast it over a fire and, you know, bacteria and, you know, all this stuff. So I'm using gross hyperbole again, but we're like, nah, like, you messing it up. Like, you know, you're cooking it well done. You're completely just ruining all the flavor and all the taste, which to a degree, I mean, you're cooking off more of what little fat usually is there when you have a very, very good cut of meat. Anyway, examples include berries, nuts, seeds, greens, sweet potatoes, fish, and some meats. According to Dr. Rawls, many herbs such as turmeric, which I love, rhodiola, I don't know what that is, reishi also pack a phytochemical punch. I don't know what these things are. Go separately. Eat a greater variety of fiber-rich plants. There's that word again. The F word. Fiber. It's believed that the Hadza people have some of the healthiest gut microbiomes on the planet. And as we know now, a healthy gut microbiome with a high diversity of microbiome species is crucial for not only digestive health, but immune health, metabolism, and mental health too. In a 2017 study, researchers analyzed 350 stool samples, shout out to the poop, from the Hadza and compared them to samples from 17 other cultures around the world. I want to look at this. Oh, they're just... everything's linking out to the same... I mean, I guess this is a place where there's studies, so... It's... You know, you guessed it. It's... paywalled. Anyway. Results revealed that the further away people's diets were from a Western processed diet, the greater variety of gut microbiomes they had. Mind blown. Further away... The further away people's diets were from a Western processed diet, the greater variety of gut microbiomes they had. In fact, research suggests that the Hadza have around 40% more microbial biodiversity in their gut than Americans. Experts suspect that the Hadza's exceptionally high fiber intake is the main contributor to their robust gut microbiome. Fiber is fuel for your healthy gut microbiomes, allowing them to multiply and produce health-promoting compounds like short-chain fatty acids. A study revealed the Hadza diet contains a whopping 150 grams of fiber per day. Most Americans, on the other hand, get just 10 to 15 grams per day, when the recommended minimum is 25 to 38 grams. We gotta do better. The Hadza diet consists of about 70% plant foods, including tubers that contain a range of indigestible fibers that are ideal gut fuel. But fiber alone isn't the only important factor for greater microbial diversity. Eating fiber from a variety of plant sources, which also provide gut-friendly phytochemical compounds, is believed to help feed a diverse array of gut bacteria. So, a good basic rule is eat a variety of plants to cultivate a variety of beneficial gut flora. Goes on to say that it's supported by another research article. Add more fiber to your diet by focusing on whole fiber-rich plant foods, such as leafy greens, berries, cruciferous. I know that word. Cruciferous. That's those dark leafies. So that's your spinaches, your kales, your Swiss chard, if that's your thing, that very bitter plant. But yeah, you got to get some of them cruciferous vegetables. Some cruciferouses. Crucifera. Allow. Jerusalem artichoke. That's a very specific. Avocado, beans, and lentils. Lot sautés and salads are a great way to include loads of different plant foods into a single meal. Okay, now it starts getting into less nutrition, more about moving, or at least as the third one. Incorporate more functional movement into your day. While the Hadza don't exercise for the sake of exercising, they have no shortage of physical activity. Yeah, the idea of exercising is definitely comes from a place of privilege. Because, like, your day, and depending, your day ending with, or your day, depending on how you look at it, because, you know, mental mental stress versus physical stress, are they different? Are they one and the same? I think you can separate the two camps, but I think that they also have their own ability to weigh on individuals differently in different ways. But say your day is mentally exhausting, but your physical capabilities are still there. You go out and you exercise. Say the opposite is true, and it's like, okay, it makes it a little bit more difficult. And so that's what the Hadza have to deal with, where it's like, you know, their daily life and their daily existence is much more physically active, to where exercising is a side thing. I would actually go as far as probably to say, for them, leisure is the thing that is what they may partake in more as a it's like in reverse, whereas like we try to stack up as many days in the gym exercising as opposed to days resting, whereas because their days are spent doing, you know, a walkathon every single day with sprinkles of running, like they're doing Ironman challenge, you know, every single day. Of course they're not gonna, like, their downtime is gonna be very precious. Their ability to recover is gonna be very precious. Their leisure is gonna be very precious. So I'd actually see it being kind of flipped, where it's like they're getting hyped to be able to not have to do something. Because they're like, I get to go and do this other thing, and actually see the relaxation as such and a reward for just your daily activity. Because they don't grow or store any food, the Hadza go out every single day to forage and hunt. This means crafting bows and arrows, walking, and sometimes running to hunt down animals, bending and digging to unearth tubers, reaching up to pull baobab fruit from tree branches, and carrying their load back to camp. This is functional movement, is sprinkled throughout their day and happens every day, which is in stark contrast to the hours of desk sitting, TV watching that many people in modern society engage in. Yeah. They're calling me out. I work out too. Don't call me out. Balance. Interestingly, the Hadza also spend a considerable amount of time not moving, around 10 hours per day. But for about 20% of this downtime, they're actually squatting and still engaging their muscles. So, it's like they're beastly people. To get more movement and muscle engagement throughout your day, which is likely more beneficial than cramming in a single intensive workout session, go for periodic walks. Get up from your desk now and then to do light stretching or yoga. Do a few squats or push-ups while your coffee reheats in the microwave. Do some calf raises while working at a standing desk. Pull weeds from your garden, or even just vacuum and dust your home. Any type of regular physical activity can help stimulate feel-good hormones in the brain, boost the immune system, strengthen the heart and lungs, promote a healthy weight, and boost life expectancy. This is definitely something I've been doing a lot more. Is like I you know, like, what is your NEAT, your non-exercise something. Non-exercise activity thermogenesis, NEAT. But basically, all the other things that you do outside of exercise that contribute to your ability to keep your metabolism working and high and stuff like that. So, like all the fidgeting and the rapid movements, the getting up and sitting down, all of those things. And then also doing those things in the gym. So I find it cramming in. I think you paint it in a bad light when you say cramming in a single intense workout session, which, of course, if it's like you only go like say on Saturday, but on Saturday you're there for 8 hours because you're trying to make up for the days. Like, obviously it doesn't work that way, but you know, it just can't work that way. But you know, what can you do? 4, don't just admire nature, interact with it. I love this. Interacting with nature, moving your body through space. Unlike many of us, there is literally no separation between the Hadza and their natural environment. They're in constant contact with the earth while walking barefoot or pulling plants from the ground, with animals when hunting, and with each other, and this is extremely beneficial for both physical and mental health. Yeah, our bodies aren't meant to live in sterile environments, and so this oneness with nature is yet another reason that Hadza have such robust and healthy gut microbiomes. Time in nature is also associated with improved mood and reduced anxiety and depression. It may be a key reason Hadza have been described as extremely friendly and happy people. Another soapbox time. Yes, it makes sense. All of it does, and I don't need to tell you that it makes sense. That interacting with the world, the more that you do that, the more you become the oneness with nature. And treating yourself as no better than, you know, again, like these individuals in this picture, like all these living things, including the trees, including the dirt, including the sky, the clouds, are all there for a reason and all interact with each other, really, whether you like it or not, in one way or another. And so to ingratiate yourself into it like that, you're going to have a different appreciation for things. And you also will usually have to also overcome a lot of different things too, which we all do in our own different ways. Even as, no matter how sheltered you become from the world, there are all other things that you have to deal with and interact with regardless. But yeah. To maximize overall well-being, combine time spent in nature with physical activity. Head out for a nature hike, get dirt under your fingernails while gardening, or play a game of fetch outside with your pup. Okay, now let's go into more lifestyle things. Live in the present moment. Which, again, you're not going to have any disagreement for me here. According to people who have spent time with the Hadza, they take each day as it comes and do not worry about the future, and they trust that their needs will be met by nature. That's definitely one way of looking at things. Of course, in modern society full of work, family, and social obligations, this can be tough, but be more mindful in devoting our attention to the present rather than dwelling on the past or worrying about the future has clear stress reduction benefits, and lower levels of stress in turn can improve everything from emotional well-being to heart and digestive health. How exactly can you be more in the moment? Periodically engage in activities, meditating, reading, journaling, crafting, building something, or engaging in any pastime that creates a sense of calm, gets you out of your own head and help lower your cortisol levels and promote overall well-being. And I take more to meditating, and I kind of combine that with my, well, not but I combine that with pre-workout and post-workout stretching and yoga and stuff like that. So in a way, I have that time to myself before and after every exercise, and obviously getting the mind started and working and tuned with the body as well, and really thinking about what is it that I'm going to be doing, and am I going to be moving with a purpose, or is this day just is this my freebie day? Like really thinking about cerebrally about what it is that I'm about to do as I'm doing it, and create as I go as well. So in many ways, the gym, or dojo as a lot of people would call it, it makes sense why it's a place where a lot of people like to go back to. So I definitely co-sign the join a gym. or become active with around others in a public space. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a gym, but somewhere where others can see you and you can see others engaging in physical activity, I think is a great thing. And it can't be replicated. And, you know, I'm not going to knock those that want to exercise in solitude, but I think it could bring a completely different experience to those that combine the two, especially those that seem to be reclusive in all other areas and not just in the area of exercise. Embrace downtime and rest. I need to do this a lot more. How active the Hadza people are when they're foraging plant foods or on the hunt, they also know the value of rest and still spend a considerable amount of time during the day not moving. This provides ample time to rest their hardworking bodies, socialize with each other, and experience downtime. That's obviously not filled with energy-sapping technology. The Hadza also get plenty of sleep. In a recent study of 28 Hadza tribesmen and tribeswomen, researchers found that on average, they went to bed around 10 p.m. and woke up around 7 a.m. for a total of 9 hours of sleep. An absence of sleep disrupting smartphones, TVs, and other technologies allows the Hadza to tie their sleep patterns to the rising and falling of the sun. Quality sleep is essential for balancing your body's circadian rhythms and promoting overall health, as it allows every system in your body to essentially restore itself. According to Dr. Ross, aiming for at least 7 to 8 hours per night and steer clear of technology before bed, which contains blue light that can throw off your circadian rhythms and interfere with restful slumber. Yeah, and this becomes very difficult because it's like I have the ability to be able to sleep without anything in the background, but because background noise happens as well, I think I've crutched on background noise as like a consistent thing in order to also allow the other noises to not disrupt my sleep as well. Just because in the areas that I've lived in and been in, it's just always been particularly loud around, and it's hard to kind of just have pure silence even when, you know, by yourself. So, you know, and that all ties too, because, you know, the other person is not doing that thing, so then I'm hearing what they're doing, or this person works at this time and I'm here at this time, and, you know, everyone's not going to be synced up on the same sleep schedule. It just won't work that way. Bottom line, while we may not want to adapt to the Hadza's way of life entirely, we can learn valuable lessons from this tribe that may help offset some certain elements of modern life. Eating a diverse, minimally processed, plant-heavy diet rich in fiber and phytochemicals that nourish our entire being, particularly the gut, being more intentional with how we spend our precious mental energy, and connecting with our natural surroundings are all basic habits that can go a long way in channeling the health benefits of the past without giving up the perks of the present. Great article. A lot of things in there I agree with. And I think tying them and looking at them through the lens of this community and this culture is very cool and neat. But cool. I'd say we definitely talked enough about these tribes. I want to pivot to talking about food activism, since we've talked at length about this year. Transition. Allow. This is a video I wanted to watch and analyze. Probably won't watch the entire thing. Like I'll probably cut to certain places and everything like that. But we'll just watch just a little bit of it, just the first snippet of it, to get the idea of what he's talking about. Video quality is a little boo-boo, but it was just that's just how it be sometimes. So, this started with change. Oh, I didn't know it sounded like that. There's no way it said this entire time. Why? Yeah. Well, I can always change it on the. I just really choose, but I wish I would have caught that sooner. But, oh well. Anyways.
Chef Marcus Giuliano, and I'm a chef on a mission. Today's mission is food activism. What is a food activist? I get this questions asked a lot. I like to consider myself a food activist. I like to consider myself a restaurant food activist. So let's start off with some very simple questions here, and then I get these questions asked all the time, and people to explain. So it's a series of about 10 questions that we're going to go through here that are the most commonly asked questions to me about being a food activist. So here we go. Question number 1.
What is a food activist?
What is a food activist? You can do a quick Google search. You can find things. I found this great thing on gatewaygourmet.com. What is a food activist? Some of the tasks required in being a food activist include looking at the following: environmental impact of food production,
environmental impact of food production,
social impact of food production, political impact of food production, okay, how extensive transportation can diminish food quality, where to find local sources of food that are grown and raised responsibly. That's key, responsible. We can get lots of local food, but sometimes it's not responsible. Just because it's local doesn't mean it's the best. If you're in Newark, New Jersey, Budweiser beer's local. The Budweiser plant's right there. Is Budweiser or InBev the best company to buy from? I don't think so. There's
shots fired at Budweiser.
Many better options. So that's just a quick example. Advocating for safe, healthy food for everyone. Safe, healthy food for everyone. Now, when that word everyone comes in there, I consider the word everyone being for the people who actually produce the food. to make sure they're not getting chemicals sprayed on them, or there's not some kind of runoff in the water from the farming, from the aquaculture system that's going to be destructive to the local community. And there's a lot of examples of that, like methyl testosterone in tilapia. It's a testosterone. It's a hormone that they use to feed fish tilapia and revert the sex to, or change the sex to all males because they convert better. Well, what happens when you have all that methyl testosterone in local water in these communities around the world? Women start drinking it, and especially pregnant women start drinking this water, and you can see the complications going there. If they're changing the sex of fish, what is it happening to the local community? So that word everyone means everyone involved, from the person producing it to the person consuming it to the person disposing of it, okay? Extremely important. And educating communities on what they can do to make positive changes. GatewayGourmet.com, really great little article there, and there was some bullet points.
Okay. I wonder if that website that he had up here still exists.
GatewayGourmet.com.
GatewayGourmet.com. Let's see. Anyway, but yeah, so that food activism goes a lot farther than just thinking about, again, what a person is eating. It's about the food production. It's about the ethics and quality of the food. It is about equity and equality and standard and systems that are interconnected with the climate, the animals, the food, everything. Like there's a lot that goes into the ecosystem of food because it's everything. Without it, we die, and so we put it on a very high pedestal. Much like a lot of other things, it's just we don't see the priority of other animals needing to eat over our priority to eat, unless in certain circumstances you're talking about a pet, which most of the time the crossover of food that you'll be eating is the same as your pet. If you're taking care of your pet the way that you should, depending on how you're eating yourself, you probably shouldn't be feeding your pet that either. If you're, Whataburger for a dog probably is just as bad for the dog as it would be for the human consuming it. Copious amounts, obviously. But okay. Okay. Okay, well, we'll have a more polished look at it. Again, looking at the other one, it just kind of gives a great definition, getting straight to the point of what it is. So but let's look at how this activist farmer fights racism through food.
That make me happier than physically farming. Big, sweaty, kind of brutal tasks. I think I've always known in some form that this farm and this work around connecting people and land needed to exist. You wanna be free of your anxiety, just so catchy. I think the wind likes it. My name is Leah Penniman, and I'm the founding co-director at Soulfire Farm in Grafton, New York. Soulfire Farm is a Black Indigenous-led community farm that's dedicated to ending racism in the food system and training up the next generation of activist farmers.
Like, this is something that I, through my studying of nutrition and food, there wasn't many, and a lot of it probably is due to, again, like what are you focused on in the curriculum? Mainly nutrition as a trade is more so focused on the education part of it and educating the individual on how to eat, what to eat, stuff like that. There's not as much unless you just do it yourself, which I feel like that's true of a lot of things that you end up studying or looking at, and you fill in the gaps where, you know, your interests lie. But there wasn't a lot of talk, but there's a little talk, but there wasn't a lot of talk about, you know, farming and agriculture and livestock and all of those things. There wasn't really that much talk about it. Now, obviously, we talked about it as necessary means to getting the food that we're needing these people to eat or wanting these people to eat. But we didn't talk about, you know, agriculture, how to produce these things. And it makes sense. There's a whole industry that's dedicated to doing that. But the more we can cross those bridges, we start to realize that not everything that a person has on the end of their fork is a result of their individual, unadulterated, unfiltered decision. A lot of other things happened well before that person decided to do this thing, and really talking about how you get to that. And that's what I want to learn more about, is more about planting and gardening, but that requires having land, having, you know, land capital and everything, which I don't have. And I want to look into community gardens and stuff like that, and hopefully there's something like that in my near area. But we were able to during my studies have times where we would go and help plants and uproot and weed and stuff like that, and do planting and gardening and stuff like that, but nothing on a large farm scale, nothing concerning talking about really working with the animals or anything like that. But that's a part of it. And so I think that this is definitely a good thing.
Between 1 and 2% of farms are black owned, which is down from a peak of 14% of black owned farms in 2010. And this is not because black folks don't want to farm. This is because of a whole legacy of discrimination, of institutional racism. I grew up in a small rural town called Ashburnham, Massachusetts. I'm the oldest of 3, and we were, for most of our childhood, the only brown kids in our entire school. And we experienced just a lot of social exclusion and racial bullying. It ranged from taunting, you know, being called names, to assumptions about our intelligence. The land and the forest were a salvation for me. I attended every single farming conference that I could afford to go to. But by my late teens, early 20s, I started to get disillusioned because I'd look around at these farming conferences and all the presenters were white, and I looked around and there was only a handful of people of color. A mentor of mine said something so important to me at that time. You know, she was just like, look, don't give up. I know that right now it seems like you're out of place, but remember that our ancestors have been farmers for millennia, and that our ancestors built the agricultural system of this country on their backs.
Period.
I was really grateful that she was there and encouraged me to stick with it. My partner Jonah and I were living in the south end of Albany, New York with our then infant children, Nashima and Emmett. And despite our master's degrees and over a decade of farming experience, found it impossible to get fresh food for our children. There were no supermarkets, no farmers markets, no available community garden plots. The only food is a corner store, a liquor store, and a McDonald's. This system...
That sounds all too familiar. Only find a corner store, a liquor store, and a McDonald's. No farmers markets, which I need to look into the local farmers markets here and really get replugged into stuff like that. Interesting enough, I'm wearing one shirt from a place that I frequent. It's plant-based, but man, like, I thought I had it tough in a small town, or it's like, yeah, you know, I don't know of any farmers markets. It wasn't really talked about much where I grew up, but yeah, it definitely was a small town. So, you know, you were going to see the McDonald's, and liquor stores were not too far away, and corner stores were, you know, dime a dozen.
Of segregation is termed by the government a food desert. To us, there's nothing natural about apartheid. So we call it what it is. It's food apartheid. It comes out of a legacy of redlining and housing discrimination.
Respect. Another thing that is interesting, and I don't, if you didn't catch that, the distinction between food desert versus food apartheid. And I love beautifully how she puts this and says there's nothing natural about it, apartheid. A desert is a naturally occurring landscape. It's a naturally occurring environment. It's a naturally occurring phenomenon that we call that climate, that area, that ecosystem a desert. But when it's food apartheid, now we're working with actionable words. When you talk about desert, you can't do anything about that. Apartheid, it hits different, and it's supposed to hit different. It's supposed to wake up and say, hey, there's a sense of control. There's a sense of reason. There's a sense of this isn't happening on accident. And there needs to be, should be, and can be something done about it. And she puts it here. Like, there's nothing there. I've never heard it put this way, and I appreciate her putting it this way because it speaks to me in a way that a lot of individuals can understand about words and using them in a ways that are like weaponizing and ones that are misleading and and whitewashing in a way, or softening the blow of what actually is truly happening. And you see that happen a lot, and it's unfortunate that it ends up happening usually in areas that already are dealing with so many other things that it's like, wow, you just added one more thing that they had to deal with that they shouldn't have to deal with in the first world country like the United States of America.
So we call it what it is. It's food apartheid. It comes out of a legacy of redlining and housing discrimination, of divestment from communities of color, and has resulted in the situation today where if you're white, you're 4 times as likely to have a supermarket on your block than if you're black. You're more likely to have diabetes, heart disease, and other diet-related illnesses, not because you don't know how to eat, but because there is a scarcity of affordable, culturally appropriate, quality food that's accessible.
And it makes, let me start again. I see it a lot when driving through certain areas and certain towns and certain states, and I've been to multiple states, haven't been to other countries, and looking at how they kind of do things. But looking at it from like the communities that I've been a part of and that I've lived in, and then those that I've had the pleasure of visiting and stuff like that, it does seem like you have to go out of your way to find a local farmer's market. They're not just like readily available. It's kind of something you have to especially look at, and usually the cost of those items are going to be more than Walmart, because more often than not you're going to be able to find that in most areas. Or now that other markets that are selling themselves as the farmers market's supermarket, like a Sprouts or whatever, or a Whole Foods and Trader Joe's and places like that, and other niche areas that other areas may have that are not Texas based, but or like they don't just exist in Texas. But yeah, it's like you're usually dominated by 1, maybe 2, if not 2, maybe 3 large corporations, to which then you select which one you want to buy your produce from. And there's really no connection to it being local, or, some of it may be local. Like, you don't really know. Like, and there's other, like, there's corner stores and shops that I go to. It's actually interesting. Like, I go to this corner produce store, which, again, it's a storefront, but more so farmer's market type of situation. And I get things there all the time, but obviously, like, the selection is going to be a lot limited, and you have to try to find ways to doing different things. But going there and seeing, oh, this isn't here because this food isn't in season, or there was an issue with this crop at this time, so the food's not here. It's different dealing with that than dealing with going to a supermarket that can just import as much fruit or vegetable, whether it's in season, out of season, or regardless, which again, it's like variety is great, but I feel like combining the two can create the best of both worlds, where you have access to foods that you don't have at that are local, but you try to get as much as you can locally based on the things of your, again, culturally relevant, appropriate for the diet, appropriate for the individual consuming it, and an individual having the autonomy to be able to do with the food what they want and preparing it in the way that they want because they have access and have all of the tools necessary to prepare the foods that they want.
And so we work to establish a community garden right on the corner plot near our home. So when our neighbors found out that we knew how to farm, they encouraged us to start the Farm for the People. And the idea for Soulfire Farm was born. We purchased the land in 2006, and it took us 4 years to transform this marginal, degraded, and vacant land into human habitat and suitable farmland. And we opened the farm in 2011 with a small food distribution program that went right to our neighbors in the South End. A couple thousand folks roll through here every year to attend our farm training programs.
The rest of you are just going to contemplate and pray for the strawberries' happy homemaking.
There are 8 of us working here on the farm. We have an amazing team. We have a number of day-long programs and week-long camps for youth who are interested in farming, and a whole lot of community days and workshops on particular skills. It's really whatever our community is asking us for, we do our best to provide. Our most popular is the week-long BIPOC Fire, stands for Black, Indigenous, People of Color, Farming in Relationship with Earth. We have folks coming from 37 states and 3 countries this year, Spanish and English speakers, young and old. And we spend a week together doing hands-on-the-land training. We have a number of courses on business management, marketing, as well as crop planning. If you count everyone who's gone through any program, we have over 10,000 alumni. We provide ongoing and forever mentorship. We hook folks up with jobs, land, fellowships, and other opportunities.
In 2019, the James Beard Foundation honored Leah for her work tackling racism in the food system.
You know, land is the place where the lynchings, the beatings, the enslavement, the sharecropping took place. And
that took a turn. Wow, went to talk about community to land and lynchings and beatings and the enslavement of sharecropping. Wow, it's juxtaposition.
So there's no way to escape the trauma associated with that. And so a big part of what I and we are trying to do at Soulfire is to reach back across the narrative of the hundreds of years of land-based oppression to Cleopatra's, compost piles and the raised beds of the Ovambo people in Namibia, to reach back to the work of Dr. George Washington Carver, creating regenerative agriculture, and Dr. Booker T. Watley with Farm to Table. So to really reclaim the dignity of it is super important. If we can't feed ourselves, we can't truly be free.
All right, so everyone who's part of the tour, just come a little closer. We'll go ahead and get started. We're going to travel around the farm together, get a chance to visit some of the sacred sites, hear the stories, and you can ask your questions as well as we go. So follow me this way.
Community Farm Day is our monthly public event where volunteers come from all around the region to share in the labor of the land, to have a potluck lunch, and then to participate in a tour and Q&A session. It's the one time that the farm's open to the public.
Now, what's very important with strawberries is that their meristem or growth point is right here. So what do you think happens if you bury that?
Drown.
It will not grow.
We have a bunch of different teams working on different tasks, including transplanting the fall strawberries, cleaning and curing the garlic and onions, harvesting potatoes, removing some of the materials and supplies that we're done with for the season. And Jonah will be working with some volunteers, many of whom have traveled 3 or 4 hours just to get here today. We have a lot of teens that come through the farm, and not all of them are going to be farmers, but they see folks who look like them following their dreams and being their own bosses and running their own institutions.
Child labor, brother. I'm just playing. Yeah, not all of them gonna be farmers because not all of them want to be farmers, and it makes sense. The hustle's not for everybody. But as it was showing the using of the land, it it makes sense why the entire labor, and you call things labor of love, and you really extrapolate what it is that you're doing in the immediate, no pun intended, fruits of that labor. It makes sense, and all the time that goes into prepping, preparing, planning, plans going awry, the earth doing one thing when you want something else, and everything in between. How beautiful it is that at the end of this long journey in the season of raising a crop, kind of like raising, livestock or animals or anything. Like, again, tending to anything and trying to keep anything alive is a difficult task that shouldn't be taken lightly. And extending that to food and making food that is edible is very, very difficult to do. And I think I'm not going to speak for everyone, can take for granted sometimes the ease of the ease of use of a lot of different things, and how just because it's easier for me to use as the end product doesn't mean that it was just as easy to create, and then not as easy to create and then make it a easy to consume product on my end. Which is why when you go and you're looking at whole food, plant-based diets or lifestyles or food or whatever, or sustainable farming and sustainable eating and sustainable lifestyles, a lot of it goes back to the individual learning how to interact with their environment to the fullest in a way that is regenerative, and a way that is sustainable, and a way that is hopefully ethically and morally aligned as well, which that can take shape in a lot of different ways, but that's what you hope for, that's what you strive for. And so, watching a strawberry for however long it takes a strawberry to become such, from a seed planted all the way into a full strawberry, is I can see how that could be a beautiful thing, and going out there and tending to it and making sure that it stays alive, and doing that same thing for all the crops, and turning over the land and working the land and seeing the differences as day by day goes by, year by year goes by, climate changing and everything else around it, how that could be a beautiful thing. And then at the end of all of that, producing a plate of food that goes to someone that needs it, that nourishes someone. That beautiful timeline from start to finish. I can understand why that is labor of love, or work that is forever and always will be underappreciated, because it just can't be appreciated to its fullest because of how hard it is, and also how removed from that process and from that system a lot of individuals are. But then being back re-interconnected with those people, because those people are workers. Those are people that feed America, feeding people. And, with the pandemic and everything like that, seeing how just difficult and how logistic barren it is to be able to make something like that on a large scale, when everything shuts down and the system starts showing its hairy underleg or its hairy armpit, all of a sudden things look different and it changes. And, you start seeing that abundance isn't so abundant. Ease of access isn't so easy, or ease of access for you means hardest, difficult, life-threatening pathway for everyone else that's behind you on that same escalator. So, but I'll let it continue. I enjoy this, and it's the bittersweetness of, it shouldn't come down to this, or having to do this in order to try to reclaim and fight back for something that is yours. But at the same time, persevering in the face of adversity, and it's like, someone's got to do it, why not me type of mentality. I respect her for that.
What matters to me is that they can see a wider vision of what's possible for their own lives.
This is what we're trying to get to, so it's great to see it in person. Yeah, it's a goal. It makes my heart flutter. Like, honestly, I'm so inspired.
When I say 5, you say minutes. 5. 5. Until lunch, which means you should should please help all the teams clean up and put everything away. She tried to.
We do doorstep delivery of vegetables, eggs, pastured meat, and herbs, and folks can actually pay for that using their EBT benefits. The vast majority of people say that having those vegetables has made a huge difference in their health, whether that's a reduction in blood pressure or cholesterol or overall sense of well-being. And especially for our lower income members, many of them say if it wasn't for those vegetables, they'd literally be eating ramen and boiled pasta and canned foods because they simply don't have anywhere to get, fresh food like we offer. There's nothing that makes me happier than seeing our alumni farm. So for example, Dallas Robinson in North Carolina just recently opened the Harriet Tubman Farm. Folks like Keisha Cameron outside of Atlanta, Georgia at High Hog Farm. Fundamentally, I want to create a different kind of educational environment for young people that I never got to experience, where you can go ahead and be proud to be a soil nerd, and you also will have your culture uplifted, your heritage uplifted.
Soil nerd. Sorry, I got up and I want to run back a part of it. I want to see.
For mentorship, we hook folks up with jobs, land, fellowships, and other
sorry for the repeat, but 2019 Jamesville Foundation Honor Lawyer for working with racism.
The lynchings, the beatings, the enslavement, the sharecropping took place. And so there's no way to escape the trauma associated with that. And so a big part of what I and we are trying to do at Soulfire is to reach back across the narrative of the hundreds of years of land-based oppression to Cleopatra's compost piles and the raised beds of the Ovambo people in Namibia, to reach back to the work of Dr. George Washington Carver, creating regenerative agriculture, and Dr. Booker T. Watley with Farm to Table. So to really reclaim the dignity of it is super important. If we can't feed ourselves, we can't truly be free.
All right, so everyone who's predatory, just come a little closer.
If we can't feed ourselves, we can't truly be free. Bars.
Get started. We're going to travel around the farm together, get a chance to visit some of the sacred sites, hear the stories, and you can ask your questions.
I love those earrings.
So follow me this way.
Community Farm Day is our monthly public event where volunteers come from all around the region to share in the labor of the land, to have a potluck lunch, and
child labor,
to participate in a tour and Q&A session.
Baby labor.
It's the one time that the farm's open to the public.
Now, what's very important with strawberries is that their meristem or growth point is right here. So what do you think happens if you bury that?
Won't grow.
It will not grow.
We have a bunch of different teams working on different tasks and curing supplies of travel farm. Their own instable for their.
To see it. Just a goal. This is what we're trying to get to, so it's great to see it in person. Yeah, just a goal. It makes my heart flutter. Honestly, I'm so inspired.
When I say 5, you say minutes. 5. Until lunch, which means you should please help all the teams clean up and put everything away.
Oh, they about to grub. You know all the dishes in there is fire. You know every dish in there is fire. You know this lunch is about to be fire. Like, looking at the plates, it already looks vibrant from here. You already know this food about to bust.
We do doorstep delivery of vegetables, eggs, pastured meat, and herbs, and folks can actually pay for that using their EBT benefits.
Which I love completely. And this makes sense that this is something that is done in New York. And something like this is probably also done in other areas too. It makes sense why all these other things connect in a New York style study. But yes, the fact that not only are they producing the food, but they are taking the food directly to the people that need it as well. Because again, it doesn't end at just, is it there? It's getting whatever is there here, and that's logistics. Because it's like, matters not if you have a garden that has all the food that you can ever want if you can't take 2 steps before you get sidetracked, or you something happens and you can't get there, or there's so many other things that go into it than just producing the food. It's producing the food, transporting the food, getting the food to the table, like what they were saying about Watley, farm to table, and what that actually truly means. And even taking it even a step further, I would actually go as far as to be like, nah, farm to toilet. Like tracing, and obviously it becomes harder to trace it from there, and like again the logistics of that. But farm to toilet, where it's like where this potato came from, all the way to it being transported and sold or given to a market, then to the person that not only also has it and it's on their table, but they consume it, but then not even consuming it, but like getting it to the toilet with the poo and analyzing the poo and being like, yep, they got the nutritional value from this based on analyzing from the poo. Or they didn't, because, every different body works differently. But, man, I need to coin that, write that down. Farm, what did I say? Farm to table? Nah. Farm to toilet, bro. Allow. And then the second thing on this, being able to use your EBT benefits to be able to pay, it makes them better than a market or than a supermarket. This is like you can use the same transaction, so you don't have to have cash. You could use your EBT benefits, which is your electronic food benefits, and it gets delivered there, so you don't have to worry about the logistics of that, or taking public transit, or finding a way to get to the market to getting it, so they bring it to you. And they have a variety from what it looks like and it seems. So it really hits on all the areas of like, not only is this giving access to those that don't have access to it, but it's also giving access to those that also have a financial need too. So they opened it up and was like, hey, we probably should also accept EBT as well, because if we don't, that's a huge section of the clientele that we want to eat the food that we're producing. So let's add them into it as well. And I wonder, depending on their yield and everything like that, and obviously like we're talking about the background optics of the operations behind the scenes, but I wonder if there's we have so many, but X amount go to EBT beneficiaries first, or like there's the first round of crops are guaranteed to this demographic or whatever due to these reasons, XYZ, blah, 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 blah. Or like, does somebody that doesn't use EBT, like how does that affect the cost? And, what is paying for what essentially is kind of like, is their business model set up to where they're able to take the brunt of the financial losses that are associated with giving away so much food at such a, I guess, quote unquote, discounted price relative to the price of operating? Or is it what everyone buys things and they operate like a market? So, the prices are set based on that. But again, it's looking more into their business model, which, I don't think that they'll just go into in this video.
The vast majority of people say that having those vegetables has made a huge difference in their health, whether that's a reduction in, blood pressure or cholesterol or overall sense of well-being. And especially for our lower income members, many of them say if it wasn't for those vegetables, they'd literally be eating ramen and boiled pasta and canned foods because they simply don't have anywhere to get, fresh food like we offer.
Which brings up the topic of the a large demographic that goes overlooked, underserved, and I guess just outright not considered really at all when it's talked about with food, but college students. And as you know, a college student myself, and being a college student, I immediately could see some of the inherent issues that would arise whenever you are a college student, but not like in the sense of everything is paid for a college student, because, not everybody has that situation. Most of the time, the going of college and taking on the financial burden, you're already taking a financial step back to even be there. So then to think that you just have extra income or extra money to then spend on food is, ridiculous. But like looking at college campuses and what they offer as far as food, a lot of college campuses are now electing to basically just have restaurants as their cafeterias, to allow for, different variety and stuff like that. But in certain instances, it becomes very hard if you're, again, not the traditional college student, which a lot of people over time have become less and less traditional. And the tradition is now that it's non-traditional student. But all those in-between categories of the person that doesn't exactly live on campus, but doesn't, but is basically full-time, doesn't work enough hours in certain situations in order to apply for EBT SNAP food benefits, is working full-time while going to school, but that isn't also covering their books and tuition. Like all these other things that you have to deal with as a college student. It was very interesting that on our college campus, we had a, student-led food pantry to provide to college students, by college students, and we co-opted with the food pantry local to here in order to be able to provide as much food as we could, along with donations and stuff like that, and then also use that as an opportunity to study the effects that come along with that, as far as like, does this decrease or increase? Does this provide an avenue to decreasing instances of food insecurity? And that's a whole topic in and of itself. But yeah, like what she's saying here, like if I didn't get this food, I would be eating ramen, like soaked ramen noodles with a Wish sandwich. Yeah, like that's reality. It's like I've had my ramen noodle days. Not proud of the ramen noodle days. My body definitely didn't appreciate the ramen noodle days, but you did what you did what you got to do. But that's not ideal. That's not, it's not preferred in most situations. Leah has trained approximately 600 new BIPOC farmers since 2013. 86% of her graduates are actively growing food at a farm or community garden.
There's nothing that makes me happier than seeing our alumni farm. So for example, Dallas Robinson in North Carolina just recently opened the Harriet Tubman Farm. Folks like Keisha Cameron outside of Atlanta, Georgia at High Hog Farm. Fundamentally, I want to create a different kind of educational environment for young people that I never got to experience, where you can go ahead and be proud to be a soil nerd, and you also will have your culture uplifted, your heritage uplifted, and be affirmed for who you are, and encouraged to pursue your wildest dreams.
I see Leah and I stand there and I listen to her and I'm just in complete awe. Like I feel a physical reaction in my body and I just want to be quiet and listen.
I've had mixed feelings in the past around doing public speaking. It always seemed like the real work was here on the farm, and then I'd go out and just talk about the real work. And something shifted for me when I witnessed how many people who heard our talks then went on to join a program to learn how to farm, or did something like give away their land to a Black farmer.
It's really an honor and pleasure to be here with all of you. I feel excited. I feel deeply pleased to talk about two of my favorite things, which are the earth and the ancestors and what they want us to be up to. Our waiting list for our training programs is years long. Our people are yearning, right? Some of us.
So now it's like now I want some soul underneath my nails, Now I wanna, roll in, be out there with the skeeters. But I guess that is something looking like a home garden or like one of those windowsill situations or what have you. Because I haven't attempted to try to grow anything, especially not anything that like would be edible. That'd be interesting. I definitely I want to look into that a lot more.
Confuse the scene of the crime, which was the land, with the crime. But the fact is, the land has always had our back. In fact, we survived because of that connection with the land.
My hope is that we spread our love, our knowledge, our resources out through the network of Black and brown farmers so that, 10, 20 years from now, people will be like, wait, what's Soulfire again? Because there's literally right around the corner a Black and brown led teaching farm, so that it becomes so commonplace that we have to remind our children about a time when all the land was white owned and a time when all the farmers were exploited, because that's become such a distant memory.
That's a happy little ditty there. A happy little dippity doo dah there.